Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reactions to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We have our first win of the year, not from pole position, and we have a very new championship leader. We'll get to all that and more in just one moment. But before we do that, remember to like and subscribe. That's the rules. Firstly, we all know that by now. Secondly, a huge shout out to the members: Dakota, The Joyous James, Robin Myers, Cinnamon Strudel, Michael Johnson, F, Mr. Eurovision, 1986, No Edam on Sandwiches, and Flandy Skick. There you go. If you want to become a member, you want to join the ever-growing list of people who I have to give a shout out to at the start of these videos, click the link in the description. You can join on YouTube or on Patreon. Shall we get into this bloody race then? Because it is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen on pole position, Oscar Piastri alongside him. Our World Championship leader going into this race was Lando Norris. He starts 10th after a crash in qualifying yesterday. As for the tyres, on the hard tyres was Lando Norris, Isaac Hadjar, Nico Hulkenberg and Lance Stroll, all trying to go long into that race, try and gain some positions over those ahead of them. Medium tyres for everybody else, and as the lights go out, it is wheel-to-wheel between Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. A fantastic start for Piastri, pulls him alongside going into turn 1, but in turn 1, how do I describe this without upsetting people? Max basically cut the corner. He went into it, and he was never going to make it. Oscar was ahead at the corner. Max was on the outside. Oscar didn't give him any room. And yes, Max cut the corner, kept the position. Ultimately would result in a 5-second penalty for Max Verstappen. I mean, realistically here, it's one of those lap 1 things, especially with this track. That turn 1 is really bad because, you know, if you watched F2 or F1 Academy this weekend, especially in F2, you saw it all the time. Basically, if someone tries to overtake you on the inside of that track, you just cut the corner. If someone tries to overtake you on the outside going into that corner, you just push them off. And in F2, everyone got away with it. F1, not so much. In turn 1, they did hand out a penalty for this. Honestly, if they had gone, oh, it's a racing incident, we'll let it go, I could have understood. Equally, them saying, oh, it's a penalty, I equally understand it as well. It's just one of those things that could be either way, but that is how it went down. Going through the rest of the corners, there is a crash between Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly. Gasly trying to overtake Tsunoda around the outside. Yuki taps Gasly on the left rear tyre, forcing them both to spin. Gasly hits the wall and he's out from there. Yuki Tsunoda is able to carry on for a little bit, but eventually retires the car in the pit lane. This brings out the safety car. We then have a pit stop for Doohan, Bortoleto and Ocon. They all pitch the hard tyres on lap 2. I understand what they were trying to do here. Ultimately, everyone did a one-stop. They tried to make it work from the start. I think ultimately, for all of them, it didn't work at all, which was a shame. So we get the penalty just after the safety car restart. So Max slows everyone right down, leaves it really, really late. So late, in fact, Russell thought he'd gone, but he hadn't, and nearly drove right into the back of Oscar Piastri just before Max restarted it. We may have needed another safety car. Thankfully, everyone makes it through. It is, in fact, a fantastic restart for Max Verstappen, who's able to gain quite the lead over the first few corners, but that's when the penalty comes for the 5 seconds for cutting the track and gaining advantage. Leaving the track and gaining the advantage is the official terminology there. A few things here. Again, with that, I kind of get where they're coming from. I always thought that maybe they had a bit more leniency to lap 1 or corner 1 incidents. I feel there was no real leniency here at all. Maybe going back to where we were at the end of last year with Mexico and Austin, where it's just like, okay, that got a bit out of hand, we're clamping down, and that applies to lap 1 as well. Also here, they really, if Max had wanted to give the place back, which I'll hold my hands up and say, he definitely did not. He showed no intention of giving that place back whatsoever. But if he had wanted to give that place back, the stewards really gave him not a huge opportunity to do so, because the safety car came out after about half a lap. So he hadn't had much opportunity to give the place back then. Then as the safety car ended, it was basically the penalty was there straight away. So I would have preferred just like maybe give him a few laps. I would have preferred, personally, if we're going to talk about what is the best thing for racing, go back to 2021, where it's just like, okay, here's your choice. You give the penalty, you give the place back, or you get a penalty. That's the choice you're given, and the stewards tell them from there. That's the best way to do it. They had it perfect back then, but we had to change the way everything worked in 2021 because some people were sad. Oh well. Yeah, but Max was never given that place back, and ultimately it did end with the penalty. Meanwhile, further back, Lando Norris is starting his cut back through the grid. He passes Carlos Sainz for P7 on lap 7, but then gets behind Lewis Hamilton. And honestly, this is when Lewis Hamilton kind of just showed up Lando Norris for a few laps. So Norris got past Hamilton into the final corner, but gave Hamilton DRS into the first corner, where Hamilton took the place back. On the next lap, Hamilton basically brake checks him. Going into the final corner, Hamilton brakes really early. Norris nearly goes into the back of him, just moves out of the way. Hamilton gets a DRS again and goes back into turn 1 in front of Lando Norris with the DRS. Then, on the third time of asking, it took 3 laps for Lando Norris to realise, stay behind him, get the DRS into turn 1, and then he was gone. So Lando Norris wasted about 3 laps there behind Lewis Hamilton, falling for the same trick twice, but eventually gets past the P6 on lap 15. Then a few laps later, lap 19, he's up and past Kimi Antonelli for P5. Oscar Piastri pits on lap 20 for the hard tyres. Not a great stop for the McLaren team, a 3.4 second stop. The thing with this, though, for me, when I was watching at the time, I mean, hindsight being this wonderful thing, ultimately, for Oscar Piastri, it didn't matter. Spoiler alert, he won the race. But in this point of the race, Piastri was behind Verstappen. Verstappen had a 5-second time penalty, and it was Russell in third, who was miles away. From a McLaren point of view, they tried to do something clever here where they went, right, we're going to pit early, we're going to undercut Verstappen, even though he still has that 5-second penalty. The position they were in, they didn't really need to do anything smart. They could have played this super easily, just kind of back off Verstappen a little bit so you're not too much in the dirty air. Russell's a mile behind you, so he's never going to catch you. You know, they had the pace. They should just pit the exact same lap as Verstappen. He has a 5-second penalty, so unless your pit stop goes terribly wrong, you're coming out ahead of him. And it was just quite straightforward for McLaren from there. But they like to go for something a little bit different. Either way, it worked out okay for him. Pit stops now. Antonelli pits to the hards. Max is told to push as hard as he can. Russell pits on lap 21. My goodness here. Right. Oscar Piastri pulls off what might be overtake of the year. So far, I think Oscar Piastri holds overtake of the year for his overtake on Lewis Hamilton in Australia. He looked at that and went, no, I can do better, because he had an even better overtake on Lewis Hamilton here on the outside of turn 22. Really incredible stuff. And I know right now, I've done it, and I've seen lots of other people do it, comparing Piastri and Lando. Of course, they are the two teammates in the car which is seemingly the fastest of this year, and there's comparisons to be drawn between the two of them. But if you want, for me, to see the comparison of headspace between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, look at how both of them handled Lewis Hamilton in this race. Now, you can say, right, well, different tyres and different points of the races and all that kind of stuff, but just look at it from the point of view of strategy of overtake. Lando Norris got tricked by the same trick twice in a row and took 3 laps to overtake him when Lewis Hamilton has been nowhere in terms of pace all weekend. Oscar Piastri, as soon as he's on the back of Lewis Hamilton, overtook him at a corner where no other overtake I think has ever happened in the history of Formula 1. He just went, there's a gap, I'll take it, I'm through. When we're talking about comparing drivers, Lando, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, fool me nearly 3 times, well, I don't even know what that goes to. It's just kind of, Hamilton just had him in a slower car for 3 laps. Piastri just went, oh, I'm here, now I'm in front of you, goodbye. And that is the difference of headspace between these two McLaren drivers as we stand here right now. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen finally comes into the pits on lap 22, not 33, and Piastri is ahead of him by 3 seconds when they come out of the when he comes out of the pits. no real shocker there. I mean, he had some good fast laps in the laps in between when Piastri was dealing with some traffic, but realistically, it was never going to be Verstappen coming out ahead, especially with that 5-second penalty. Verstappen then finds himself behind Hamilton. He goes around the outside of him into the final corner. Hamilton then goes into the pits. There's a really weird fight here between Bortoleto and Liam Lawson for, like, what was it, 17th, something like that. Bortoleto then tries to go wide onto turn 1 to maybe get a cutback, not noticing his current manager, Fernando Alonso, is right there, and he nearly smashes him into the wall. Honestly, if it had been a millimetre closer, they probably both would have been out of the race. We would have had a safety car. It doesn't get any closer than that, and I imagine their next business meeting might be quite interesting, with Alonso going, "Yeah, don't do that again, mate. That wasn't the way to do it." Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc had been leading this race. He'd been managing the tyres amazingly well. By the way, this is a fantastic race for Charles Leclerc. He pits from the lead on lap 30, a 2.0 second pit stop from Ferrari, absolutely fantastic. Moves over to the hard tyres. He made those mediums work so much better than anyone else, made them last so long. Fantastic stuff from him, really well done. Comes out in 5th place. Third back, Carlos Sainz, who's been having a good race, passes Stroll for P9 on lap 31, and this is when Leclerc just gets into a really good rhythm. He's saying fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap on lap 33. On lap 35, Lando Norris takes his hard tyres off, he pits onto the mediums. He comes out in P5 behind Charles Leclerc. Now there was 2 incidents for him in the pits which could have potentially ended up with penalties. Thankfully for him, neither did. He locked up coming into the pits, which could have broken the speed limit of the pit lane, but he was okay from there. Then as he came out of the pits, he had the front right tyre on the white line of the pit lane, which could have been a penalty, but it was investigated and the steward said that it wasn't a penalty. But 2 moments there, which if it had gone the wrong way, if it was a different steward who was having a bad day, could have ended in disaster for Lando Norris there, but thankfully he was okay from that point there. Charles Leclerc passes George Russell with relative ease on P3, that's on lap 38 of 50. Liam Lawson gets a 10-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, and I'm not even sure what this was about, to be honest. I don't know if this was a track limits violation over and over and over again type thing, or if he did just kind of cut a corner and gain a position. I wasn't entirely sure, but another race with a penalty for Liam Lawson in what was relatively a good race for Liam Lawson. Norris gets past George Russell on for P4 on lap 41, and he starts to chase down Charles Leclerc, but in the end is not able to make it. And as we cross the line, Oscar Piastri wins the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen is 2.8 seconds behind him in second. Charles Leclerc in 3rd place. Lando Norris is 4th. George Russell 5th. Antonelli 6th. Lewis Hamilton in 7th. It's double points for Williams with Sainz in 8th, Albon in 9th. Isaac Hadjar is the last of the point scorers in 10th. Liam Lawson just missing out in 11th. Alonso is 12th. Behrman in 13th, Ocon 14th, Hülkenberg 15th, Stroll 16th, Bortoleto 17th, Jack Doohan in 18th, then the 2 DNFs were Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly. With this result, Oscar Piastri takes his first ever back-to-back wins, and for the first time in his career, Oscar Piastri is the championship leader, and we have an Australian championship leader for the first time since Suzuka in 2010, and we are looking possibly to have our first Australian world champion since 1980 with Alan Jones. A fantastic race from Piastri, who really just looked under no pressure whatsoever from start to finish. Worked it really well. I mean, the only thing you could say to him is maybe you should have got pole position, but he corrected that basically into turn 1. He just had to wait a little bit for that to come back to him, and then from there, he just kind of bossed it to the end. Max Verstappen, he did get driver of the day. Personally, I would have given driver of the day to Oscar Piastri, but of all the strange driver of the days we've had over the last few races, I think this one makes the most sense. He did a fantastic job in P2. That pole lap yesterday was fantastic, and in the end, only 2.8 seconds behind. The questions will be asked of if Max had just given the place back, could he have been in contention to win this race? Personally, I feel no. If he had given the place back at the start of the race, Oscar would have been in the free air. The McLaren is such a faster car than the Red Bull, he would have just ran away with it either way. I think no matter what, after that turn 1 incident, there is no way that Max Verstappen was winning this race. So P2, I think, for him is the best he could have done, and that's what he got. A fantastic race for Charles Leclerc, his best race of the year so far. I mean, we gave Charles Leclerc Driver of the Year last year because he was absolutely incredible. Up until this point, we have not seen that kind of caliber that I've come to know Charles Leclerc having, but this race here was amazing. Worked those tyres to perfection, was so fast at the end of the race, worked it really well, and the Ferrari team, the pit stop crew with that 2-second pit stop, really good, perfect from everyone attached to Charles Leclerc, even his engineer Brian. Wonderful stuff. A good recovery for Lando Norris after a disappointing qualifying yesterday sees him in 4th, but the headline will be that he should have scored a hell of a lot more points this weekend, and he didn't because of that crash. Mercedes were kind of in their own little world this weekend. They weren't fast enough to challenge the top 4. They were too fast for anyone else, so Russell 5th, Antonelli 6th. Lewis Hamilton has had no pace all weekend, so he might even be quite happy with 7th, which is a weird thing to say, but yeah, it's nowhere for him. The first double points finish for Williams since Baku last year, and Carlos Sainz beats Alex Albon for the first time this year, I think it is. So fantastic stuff for him there. He's getting better every single weekend. We saw last time out in Bahrain, he had got some good pace until he had a hole in his car. This time, there was no hole in his car, and he did very well. So I'm sure he'll be getting happier and happier all the time there. And another good point for Isaac Hadjar. Liam Lawson got that penalty, like I said, the 10-second time penalty, but still, I believe that's his best result of the year in 11th, just missing out there. Really good stuff from Liam Lawson, I think. Heading in the right direction. There was an article this week that said he's getting his confidence back. He's getting to feel the old Lawson again. And it looks like that is coming back with every week. So similar to Sainz, the further we go into the season, I think the better he will get. So there you go. I think Alonso will be very happy with 12th because the Aston looked dreadful. The Hasses are 13th and 14th. They just had no pace at all. Hulkenberg will be happy with that. In 15th, Stroll is being Stroll. In 17th, then Bortoletto and Doohan, both of them pit for the hards on the first lap after the safety car. And then, yes, we're just struggling towards the end. Everyone else on fresher rubber, it just was not working out for them. But there you go. That's how it is sometimes. So, that is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri is our championship leader. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time for all things Miami, but between now and then we will have the Stop and Go F1 retro review of 1981 coming out on Tuesday, where we shall go to Spain. On Friday there is a brand new video coming to the channel all about buying knockoff F1 merch from Temu. If you're a Mansell Mustache member, you can see that video right now. All that will be out on Friday for everybody else. If there is any big news across the week, we'll be here to talk about it on Saturday morning. Apart from that though, that's it. We're done. Driver ratings out tomorrow. Forgot to say that as well. So much content to come. Oh my god. There you go. Right. We'll be back later on. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Goodbye.